Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Believers Club. We're so happy that you're back, and we've got another listener episode request. So, this topic is super dope because it's about money. And shout out to Sonia Flower Child. This was an amazing episode idea because oh man, we've had so many conversations about this within our friendship just over the years. And I think so many people, whether you're a business owner, you're trying to start a business, or just anybody in general could really benefit from understanding money. And so the topic was our understanding of trauma response to finances. So trauma response for money, abundance, i.e. relationship with money, knowing your worth as a service provider and being able to charge an amount that is fair to you without guilt. How have you dealt with this? If so, have you dealt with this? If so, how have you come over it, or how are you currently dealing with it? Just want to know what you two are doing. Woo! That's a
mouthful.
Epic question. Love it because it covers so many important little areas when it comes to finances and entrepreneurship. So I have a lot to say about this. Serena, if you want to kick it off.
Yeah, and I think exactly, like, we can relate to everything you asked, and I'm currently dealing with the service provider side of it. And you already know I do makeup, and it's, as much as every category or business has its what would you call it, budgets or what, I'm not even making any budgets, budgets and things like that,
cash flow.
I struggle to this day. Sometimes I undercharge, and sometimes I have to really stand on my 2 feet and make that decision where I know what the worth is and what I'm providing and how much knowledge has gone behind it. May that be from self-taught, may that be from schooling. I feel like deep down in a person, like I personally am not a huge, like, you gotta go to school to be selling things or starting businesses. I am very much so depending on what you're passionate about and how deep you're gonna go with this shit. And for me, it's a constant struggle, and I ain't gonna start bullshitting with it, and I do still to this day at times end up undercharging if I feel like I'm gonna miss out on,
like, lose the client
and get to network and start a relationship, which is a constant struggle of, I feel like the number one thing that's related to that would be just the worthiness. When you realize, like, your work is worth it, what you provide is worth it. If you're not feeling even, if you're 99% with that shit, that 1% is gonna make you undercharge or give shit out for free, which, you gotta do what you gotta do for businesses, but in a sense where you're being taken advantage of.
Oh man, I think in the beginning, I think giving value and giving things free of charge to people is a huge asset to your brand, personally. And I remember going to a weekend business course called Entrepreneurs Academy, and one thing that was really stressed was, when you're just starting out, get the word out there in every way that you can, giving out free service, and don't think of it necessarily as free, but think of it as in you're providing value to people.
You're investing in yourself. Like, I send out PR packages, and that's as much as, yes, you're sending out free products, but that's how every business starts.
Yourself.
That's how you're getting your name out there. That's how you're putting your product in front of people that may love them and pass it on to the next person. And that's how every business really starts.
And I think that the language around it is huge too. Like, are you giving out free stuff, or are you investing in your business?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
And it's always investing.
Because it's always investing. Because if you think about it, the more the language piece is so important, right? The more that you invest in yourself in the beginning, the more you'll flourish later. And I think if you keep in your mind that you're giving out free stuff always, you're just gonna see yourself as a cheap business.
And also, when it comes to investing, when I said about the education part, it's that's just my personal view on it. I am gonna take probably future courses, and I will go where I feel like I'm going to go learn from. But I want to make sure that's clear, that that's also investing. Going to school, going to expand your education or level of what you already know, that's investing in yourself. So don't take what I said earlier out of context, because it definitely applies both ways.
Totally. There's a difference between wasting your money and investing your money. If you feel that there's actual value coming back to you and it's something that is important to you, then it's an investment for sure. If you've got a clear goal at the end of it, then it's an investment, no matter what anyone tells you. I think I have a question for you when it comes to charging for makeup. Do you ever, because I think a lot of people probably struggle with this. I know I did with coaching. Do you ever look at other people and say, wow, they're charging this much for their business and they're killing it. Why aren't I charging as high as they're charging?
Yes, to a certain degree I have. Like, it depends. It depends on who that person is. That's why before I started, how I came up with my pricing and what I felt was right. And I knew that I hit the points. Like I to this day, like, when I say I undercharge, it's for bigger things, but for everyday like type of things that I would be charging, it's been really good. Because before I started, I looked up with my level of where I started, and as I've been progressing, I've been checking what would be ideal pricing and what is actually out on the market, because that's the perfect way to know what you should be charging, because that's what people are going to get out in the market. And you can check different levels of, like, where you're at. And you can do your own judgment, and that's where you're going to come in. How confident are you that you are willing to stand behind your price and provide the service or product and actually stand behind it? Because that's literally what it's about. If you stand behind your service, if you stand behind your product, you're going to be fine. Because you believe in it 100%. You're putting in.
People pay. I genuinely believe people pay. They pay into you.
The person.
They pay into you.
I've heard that many times now.
Listen, I'm struggling with this. This is something that I will openly say is a gap in my business. Is I don't know. I still am figuring out my worth in the coaching world. And I'll be so transparent. And this kind of transparency could do me a lot of harm because it shows insecurity, but it's the truth.
It's more truth than
it's the truth. When I started out coaching, I had put together packages, right, based on what Serena said were starter packages. Like a starter coach, someone that's new into the industry. And I had put together a package. It was like a monthly package where it was 4 coaching sessions, and it had a lot of in-between stuff, homework, this, that, support, and all these other ways. And I had a $360 package, right, that I made for the month. Now, when I looked at that, I was like, oh, $360 for the month, that's totally cool. And then I started to psychoanalyze this, right? Well, if I break it down by each session, that means I'm charging them like, oh my God, like well over $50, this, like, or around that price. And I was like, I don't know if I'm worth that much per hour. And I started to get in my head about it, because I would jump on a client call and I would, instead of really focusing in on supporting them, I had this pressure in my mind of like, this needs to be worth this much for them. So I got to deliver this dollar amount in this call. And that started to really mess with me. So you know what I did? I just took my pricing off, because I was having a hard time with coaching. It's weird because you're literally buying into the person's insight and their ability to support you. When you have a product, let's say it's a service, like let's say it's makeup, or let's say you actually have a product to give them. I feel like you can look at that, at the talent, and you can look at the product, and you can say, okay, this I can price it at this point because, maybe I've invested this much into makeup products and this and that. With me, I'm like, it's this. And so how do I charge for this? How do I put a value on that?
In a sense, like therapist.
And each person coming through to me has a different set of issues. And so how do I know what's going to take more, what's going to take less? It was such a trial and error journey. And so I stopped putting up my prices, and I had people DM me one-on-one. And I remember working with clients, and they would DM me and say, hey, I'm going through this, I'm going through that. COVID happened. And I thought, fuck, I don't want to charge people during COVID. But at the same time, COVID is real for all of us. Right? I was looking at other coaches and what they were doing, and they were giving out complimentary services to their services that already existed. Right? And there were coaches that were already making money, but they were giving away like a 1-month package to this or a free coaching session to that. So what I decided to do was just scale my prices and work with the person and say, what is it that you can afford? And we'll make something happen. That didn't go so well either, because I found that people, the response was that they kind of valued it less, as opposed to if I had just given them a straight up price. They could either match it or they simply can't. And I think that ties into a lot of confidence behind what it is that we can provide. And I'm still working on that. I'm still working on how confident I feel as a coach.
It truly is about that. It's truly about how secure you are, how insecure you are, about your work, how comfortable you are, how worthy do you feel. All those things really explain why you do what you do when it comes to your pricing, or undercharging, or justifying why it isn't working for them when it's them. They're paying for a service. They're gonna take it or not. Bottom line.
And it comes back to that whole thing of like, do I lose the client or do I? And when you're in that position as a coach, or you're in that sort of industry, you also have this need and desire to help the person. Right? You're like, oh, you can't give me money, I'm not going to help you with your problems. Like it feels counterintuitive to people that are in that sort of support industry. But then at what point do you get caught up in
how long are you going to
not paying your bills?
How long are you going to continue just, giving just free feedback?
And when I think about it, like, I have given thousands of dollars into coaching. Like, I have paid coaches a lot of money to support me in different avenues.
We've recorded over 30 videos with free just content that is coming straight out of her head and straight out of my head as well.
It's just value. And so it's when this topic idea came up, I realized real quick, I'm like, I'm dealing with this now. And I really sat back and started to think about the trauma response. And we could easily say, you know what, we went through this, we figured it out, and now here's how you get over it too. But we're in it right now. I'm in it.
For sure.
At this moment. And so, but it's interesting because even though I'm a coach, I also work in financial education. So there's a lot that's going on, right, in my head when it comes to money, because I'm understanding the value of money, and I'm working towards really getting people educated on how to invest and save and do all these things. But when it's a little bit different when it comes to charging someone or coming up with a price. For somebody.
Because it ties in, like we said, a lot of other things besides just there's a price out there. It ties into who you are, because again, like you said, you're paying into the person as much as you're paying into the service.
If I had a product, if I was selling, let's say my bookshelf, or I was selling some clothes, I would easily put a value on it. I would easily say, oh, that's for sure worth $400 and I'm not taking anything less. But when it comes to my desire to help someone and they say, what is the cost? I kind of get messed up there. But I look at a lot of the life coaches that I admire, and they have no problem setting their prices. And their mindset about it is like, as valuable as your client is, you are as well. And think about all of the investment that you put into becoming that coach. When your client is sitting in front of you, they're getting all of that. They're getting all of the time and effort that you put into yourself in that call. So I go back and forth with that. But there were some notes that we looked up, and we've brainstormed and wanted to share with you guys when it comes to financial trauma, because I know that was specifically the term that was used, and it's a really important term because I think that millennials specifically, we deal with financial trauma, and we're actually talking about it now. Because our economic situation is completely changing. Our workforce is changing. The way we view our careers, all of it is shifted. And so I just want to share a little bit about that. Like, where does financial trauma even come from? And I think it's safe to say that it comes from your upbringing.
Bang, right there.
Right?
That's what.
Your family's relationship with money that you grew up seeing is got to be a huge impact on how you spend, how you save, all that.
Yeah, because they've been the example. So that's the only, if you've been surrounded by an example that wasn't good or healthy, that's what you're going to continue to use up until hopefully you realize that, hey, there's another way to get around this. But
for sure. Yeah. Like growing up, my family never talked about money. We just never talked about it. It was like a mystery to me.
Yeah.
I always knew, like, and as a kid, I never asked questions because we always had everything we ever wanted.
Yeah.
Like, our parents never, ever, ever made it seem as though there was any sort of struggle, any sort of hardship. It was always like, we got what we wanted and everything was comfortable and beautiful and amazing. But I remember thinking to myself, I'm like, how did they make it? Like, how? Like, they work so hard, I get that, but like, we get everything we want. Mm-hmm. And my parents, we just never spoke about money. So I grew up thinking money just literally, you just have it. There's no like struggle, there's no like stress, none of it.
You didn't know how we got it.
I just know that you work, you get it. You work, you get it, right? And I remember as a little kid going into the bank with my parents. They had some meeting or whatever, and this memory specifically. And at that time, you could leave your kids in the waiting room and not really care what's happening because the world was much safer back then, right? So I remember just playing with these toys in the waiting room and thinking, wow, we're in a really important place because everybody is like super dressed up and everything is like super serious over here. Mm-hmm. And I remember having this anxiety of like, I don't know what this, I was like maybe 5 years old. It's like, I don't know what my parents are talking about with this person. And
were you right there? Were you right?
No, I was in the bank. I was in like the playroom, but I just knew that like.
Oh, you were thinking the whole time.
Yeah. Like, what is this place? And then we'd leave. Yeah. But I could feel like the bank had this level of tension and like seriousness that a kid just doesn't understand. Like, you don't run around the bank and yell and scream. You sit quietly in a corner and like everyone's like super serious and nobody's playful. And I just remember associating like that world with it being something we just don't talk about and something that's just serious. And I grew up having that relationship with money. I didn't understand how to save it. I didn't understand how to really use it. I just understood how to spend it. And I understood that's it. That's basically it. And that caught me into a really bad loop going into college and university because I took out a student loan. Yeah. And it's not just our families. The fact is that finances are never spoken about in our school system. Right?
Yeah, so there's no class. There's literally no there's a math class which teaches you everything, but there's no
about math, but not about money. And so, yeah. Do you know what I mean? And so it's one of those things that even going through high school, we have no fucking clue how this thing works. And so then we go into university and we get a student loan for God knows how much. And then all of a sudden we have to understand how to pay this all back and how to go into the workforce and make money and buy, like, that I think is a traumatic experience because we literally go most of our lives without knowing how to do something. And then boom, we're expected to be adults and we're expected to understand how the inner workings of it all.
Yeah.
Right.
For sure.
So I think that is kind of part of why maybe our generation is struggling with financial concepts because we don't grow up with it being a normal conversation. But if you want to know what financial trauma really is, it's basically our response to something that we have stress with. How do we deal with that particular stressful thing? With money, it's easily going to be overspending. It's easily going to be undercharging. It's easily going to be, let's just not even deal with it. Yeah. That's a response to decide. Right? Yeah. And so a couple of things of how to actually overcome financial trauma. One is really understanding how to reduce our debt. And I'll tell you guys, okay, so I I think maybe about a year and a half ago, I called Serena and I said, listen, man, like I quit my full-time job.
Mm-hmm.
I still had credit card debt. I still had like no backup plan.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing I knew is that I needed to learn how to deal with my finances. And so I started getting really educated. I started, talking to people in that industry, and I worked on reducing my debt. So that is something that I think all of us as millennials really need to focus on. And as business owners, we need to understand that our debt ratio needs to be like minimal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a good thing, there's a difference in good debt and bad debt.
Mm-hmm.
But that's something, if anybody wants a free financial analysis, you let me know. We can work through it. But also planning for the future, even if it's like, dude, you think about how much money we spend on just coffee and stuff, like $10 a day even, it adds up.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's something we've heard our whole life, but sometimes until you hit that spot, then you're like, shit, it's true. $10 a day, it really adds up.
It adds up. And I think when you're digging deep and you're analyzing your financial trauma, label your feelings. That's advice I'll give to you as a coach that I have learned is, if you're feeling stressed, let it be known. Like actually label that feeling. If you're feeling joy with your finances, label it. Whatever comes up for you as you're healing through, like label those feelings so that it's clear to you what's happening. Talk to a friend. Like I talked to Serena, I talked to a couple people, and I was like, what are you guys doing? Like, how are you guys managing your finances? And man, if they're your good friends, they'll open up and they'll talk to you. And then talk to a professional and stop avoiding. Like I was so good at this. I felt like avoiding my debt or avoiding my habits around money, it was just gonna go away, because I was gonna in my head I was like, I'm just gonna make more because I'm going into business. I'm just going to make more, and eventually this isn't going to be an issue anymore. But that's like fairy tale thinking. You have to get real with what's happening now. And I sat down with somebody for the first time. I sat down with someone and I bared my bones to them. And I was like, this is what's happening. Take a look at my entire financial analysis. And I was met with so much compassion, and I was met with solutions to my issues. Right. And I was sitting with my team and the team that I now work with. And it's such a blessing to be able to sit down with people. I sat down with a girl who was making, she was making under $1,000 a month. And she like didn't have any debt, but she didn't know how to save. And she was so goddamn embarrassed with how little she made. And you would be surprised as to like people walking down the street what their financial situation is. And I just remember like counseling her through that and helping her feel more aware and better about where she's going, because it's not about how much money you make, right? It's about how much you keep. It's about how much you save.
It's what you do with it.
And that will start to heal the financial trauma. When we start spending on things that are just making us feel happy, you're actually adding to the trauma. You're not healing. You're numbing the pain. And we might think that we're actually like doing good, but we're not.
Because that's not how you deal with anything traumatic. Traumatic things need to be talked about. That's why you need to find somebody first. Go to your friends and family and find somebody that can give you some truth and not bullshit you and tell you how they've done something, and then you can make another decision. Go to a professional. That's the only way you're going to realize everything that has led up to that point. And we say it every time, that it's always communicating it. You have to communicate whatever you're going through. Bring it up to yourself too. Just talk. Like she said, you label it. You got to bring it up. You talk about it to yourself. Sort it out. Make a list. Write it out. See where your debt is. That's like, I've really been doing that lately. I've been writing things down, and I kid you not, things are getting checked off. And if I wasn't writing it down, it wouldn't be getting done. And that's something that's been working for me. Anything, literally, even a walk, I write it down and it ends up happening, versus if I don't.
I love it.
It's something, the way we humans work, but it's a great way to keep yourself accountable. And also, just when you put it on paper, you see it in front of you, and then you can just confront it and make sure you work through why it's there. and then figure out, then you'll come up with the solutions and the plans. You got to be aware of it.
Money is, and I can't believe I haven't mentioned this yet, but I honestly believe money is energy. Money is, it's an exchange, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're working to get it so that you can use it to give it somewhere else.
Yeah.
I think money has a lot of power and energy to it.
Mm-hmm.
And what you do with it is a really big deal. There's this one quote, and maybe we can use this at some point, and it says, a quote from money is, save me now and I'll save you later.
Yes, I love that one. Yeah.
Save me now and I'll save you later. And
Yeah.
we always think that it has to be a certain amount that we save, but just save something, even if it's fucking $5 a day.
Yeah.
Save it. You can find it somewhere within your budget, right? Even if it's the $3 a day.
Yeah.
Put it in a jar and just see what happens, because I think that with money, if you get to know it and you get to actually build a relationship with it, this is going to sound really weird, but I did this and it helped me. It helped me to actually value money, because what would happen is money would come in, automatic deposit, go onto my debit card, tap it away. And when you think about the energy that like your debit card is just tapping, you're just depleting. You're not growing.
I'm dealing with that right now for sure.
Right?
I'm going through that. Yeah.
And
putting more value on it.
More value. This is what I used to do. I would get paid. I would go to the ATM. I'd pull out $200. Okay. And I would actually put it in my wallet. I would feel it. I would touch it. I would really look at it and observe it and really feel like the energy that was like coming through it. Because, and I don't care if this is like hippy dippy, because it really does. Anything that you have, like this coffee, this cell phone, they've all got some sort of energy attached to it, right? And your money, one of the most powerful resources in the world, you think that that's something that doesn't have energy? That's crazy. So I used to feel it out. I used to look at it and I would appreciate it. I honestly would show so much gratitude for like the physical money that I had. And then when I would put it in my wallet, I would put it really nicely. I wouldn't crumple that shit up. I wouldn't just toss it around. I would like line my bills up, and I felt like I had something really valuable in my pocket. And it didn't matter if it was $40 or $500. The fact is that there was something valuable in there. And I see all the time, like we go into people's cars and change is just tossed around. Gather that shit, put it in there nicely. Right? Show respect to your financial health, and you will start to feel a much better connection to it. That has helped me. Wow, that has helped me overcome so much stress in my life when it came to money. Was just showing respect to it first. And then everything after that started to flow much better.
No, I totally agree with that. I feel like everything in this world has an energy. And we say, money comes and goes. That's the fact of life. But how is it coming and how is it going? That's another fact. And that's something I think we as humans constantly work at. And that's what we're talking about. And it's a journey. That's all I know. Like I said, I'm currently working on it. Even as she was saying something, I'm like, shit, I'm working on that too right now. Like being gentle with it, respecting it, and just actually making yourself aware that's coming in, okay, feeling it without even not just getting it and then next thing you know it's already gone. It was less in your hand than it was in somewhere else. So that is something I'm dealing with right now, and it's a journey, but it's a journey that I'm working through nicely. Like I'm slowly paying off my debts right now, and it's that's, I always say everything's a journey, but it's it is a journey, and this is my financial journey so far. So a lot of things that we're talking about, I'm currently dealing with, and it's something that when you're currently in it, you don't know what else to really say besides what you've done. So it's like I can relate to now. Hopefully, in another 6 months to a year, we come back and we're in a different place.
Totally.
You can give more feedback.
Piece of advice that I was given by a coach and business owner was, don't charge based on what you need to cover that month for yourself. Don't do that shit, because your clients will see right through it. Because what happens is if you're depending so much on that client on that sale to get your groceries that week or whatever it is, you are going to come off desperate for that sale.
Yeah.
And I've actually experienced people do this. There was a coach who was so wanting myself and a friend to join their program, and she was just harboring and following up every single day. And was like, this is going to be good for you, and if you don't do this, like, you're going to end up in the same problems and da 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 da. And I was like, this chick really needs this sale. This person really is chasing the sale, and she was doing this to other people too. And it was like, I knew, and I knew this because she went online and talked about, financial stress. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm putting all the pieces together. People will see right through it. Charge what your service is worth. Don't charge based on how many bills you got to cover. Of course, in any business, you have to, if you're a restaurant or whatever it is, you have to take into account like what you've put into the business and to recover your costs. But if you're just going on like a month-to-month basis and changing your rates and stuff like that, don't do that shit. Don't ever put a desperation on your price.
And get consistent with it. Have a consistent, and consistency doesn't mean that there's no updates. As you grow, make sure you are growing your service pricing as well. I was gonna say, that's something I think you're not overcharging people. Now you're charging what you're worth at that moment, and another 10 years into it, you're gonna be at another place, and that is, you got to make sure you get to that consistent point of knowing that it's okay to charge and change the pricing as you grow and move forward in your service as well.
Absolutely. Wow. We talked a lot about this, but there's, really, really awesome topic. Thank you, Sonia Flower Child, for the topic idea. And we're going
to... hopefully we answered, or, you could pick up on, I'm sure, because I picked up on a bunch of shit just from what Hard said. So she's definitely, I think you're definitely the person. It's so crazy to see, like she said, she was dealing with debt up her ass, to put it lightly.
Loans, and credit cards. We all have it. Well, not all of us. A lot of us do, but we don't tell people.
But whatever the debt may be,
whatever it is,
and I feel like, she knew she hit that point where she had to sort that shit out. And in that sorting out, she discovered why the hell it was happening in the first place.
100%. And you know what? Even if you feel like you don't have a solution right now, start by just building a relationship with the money that you have, the bills that you have. Like feel the currency, feel the energy behind it, and then speak to a professional. My debt is like, man, that's a thing of the past, because I felt like I was hopeless. I felt like it was in a place where and it wasn't even like it was that much, but because I didn't even know how to deal with it, it felt like it was a huge mountain.
When you don't know how to deal with something, it's the biggest mountain.
It doesn't matter if it's $5,000, $10,000, $20,000. If you have $30,000 of debt and you know how to deal with it, your journey is much easier. If you've got $10,000 worth of debt and you don't know what the fuck to do with it, it's going to feel like 100,000
for sure.
Right?
For sure.
So you just have to talk about it with somebody. Feel free to message me. We can go through a free analysis and get you on that same journey. But guys, trauma around money is real, and it ends here. We got to stop it. So thanks for the idea. Every Wednesday, we do put out a new episode at 12 p.m. PST on YouTube, IGTV. Follow us at the Believers Club and share with us any feedback, things you want to hear about. Share this with someone that you think could get some value out of it, and we'll see you next week.
Peace.
Bye.
Bye.